Okay, the regulations of insulin released. Insulin is released from the pancreas. More specifically, the beta cells of the pancreas. The beta cells of the pancreas. So this diagram represents the beta cells of the pancreas, and there are three transporters that are important that we should know of. One is GLUT2, which is glucose transporter 2. The second one is the ligand-gated calcium channels. So GLUT2 normally transport glucose from the bloodstreams and into the beta cells, and the ligand-gated potassium channels will transport the potassium from inside the cells to outside the cells. And the third one is the voltage gated calcium channels, and this will pump calcium from outside the cells and into the cells. Normally, after we eat a meal, we have an increase in level of glucose in our body, and we need a lot of insulin. So we need a lot of insulin so that it will help other tissues to uptake those glucose, to lower the blood level of glucose. So and the beta cells is the cells that is responsible for the secretions of this insulin. So when there's an increase in the level of glucose in our blood, the beta cells, the GLUT transporter 2 of the beta cells will transport that glucose into the beta cells. And within the beta cells, that glucose will undergo glycolysis. Will undergo glycolysis in the cytoplasms and the mitochondria, and that would increase the ATP. So the increase in the ATP will causes the ligand-gated potassium channels right here to closes. So normally potassiums would go out of the cells, so it pump out of the cells. So when you close that potassium channels, the potassium will build up within the cells, so that will cause an increase intracellular potassium inside the cells, and that leads to the membrane depolarizations. So the cells becomes less negative right here, and that causes the the voltage gated calcium channels right here to open up. Once this calcium voltage gated calcium channel opens up, a lot of calcium from outside the cells will enters the cell. So that leads to an increase in intracellular calcium channels, and this calcium inside the cells serves as a second messenger that stimulates the release of insulin right here. It's within the vesicles right here to released from the pancreatic beta cells, and that's how you have an increase in the level of insulin. So there are two clinical correlations here. One is neonatal diabetes. In neonatal diabetes, there's a mutations in the KCNJ11 genes, and this genes encodes for the subunits of the potassium channels. So when there's a mutations in this subunits, the channels that keeps the channels open. So therefore, more of the potassium will pump out the cells right here, and so it's unable to accumulate within the beta cells. So the beta cells does not depolarize, and so it does not stimulate the voltage gated calcium channels to open. So therefore, calcium is unable to accumulate within the cells, and it disrupts the release of insulin. So that is why we have neonatal diabetes. The second one is the mechanisms of sulfonylureas. So it is a drug that is used to treat diabetes. More like type 2 diabetes, where a patient still has residual or still has some beta cells left. The mechanisms of actions for this drugs is similar to an increase in in ATP, where this drug closes the ligand-gated calcium channels, and this causes an increase in potassium within the cells, causes the polarizations of the membrane, and increased in the causes the open of the calcium channels right here, increase in calcium, and that calcium causes the release of insulin. So to recap the whole thing really quick, uh, regulations of insulin released by the pancreas, more specifically the pancreatic beta cells, and we have the three channels right here: the GLUT2, the calcium channels, the potassium channels right here, the calcium channels right here. When there's increase in glucose come in and then undergo glycolysis, increase in ATP. The increase in ATP closes the potassium channels. The closure of potassium channels causes an increase in potassiums within the cells, and it causes depolarizations of the membrane, and that membrane depolarizations of the membrane causes the opening of the calcium channels, which leads to increase in calcium, and that increase in calcium stimulates the release of insulins from the pancreatic beta cells.